Well, thank you for being here today. Start off, quick wrap up from the Northern Colorado game. Defensively, I thought we played at a pretty high level. Really, one of the things going into the game that I was concerned about was they take so many deep shots, and they have three pretty talented receivers. One of them ended up not playing in the game, number 10, but the Wesley kid does it to everybody. I mean, the guy's caught for over 1,000 yards, has a bunch of touchdowns, and probably had to play a little bit more man than we wanted to, just because a lot of those explosive plays kind of come on these diagonal routes, sail route concepts, and cross-country concepts. And so I thought our secondary did a really good job. Our internal defensive player of the game was Jalen Cole. Jalen was called on with the injury to Tyrell to play nickel and base. He played our boundary corner and base and was our nickel in our nickel package and our Bronco package, and played his best college football game. He's in the training room right now. His neck's sore. I'm like, that's what happens when you have to tackle people, So he's doing a great job. I think really played at a high level for us. The takeaways clearly were a huge key in the game. Jacques has some great ball skills. I think Munchie's his roommate, so he gave up one because he's so far behind and can't overtake him in interceptions. So he let Jacques get that one. But I thought that was a really nice play. Set us up on a short field. A handful of the big man pick. I mean, that he showed some good ball skills. I mean, that ball had some juice on it and did a nice job drop. He said he saw the tight end of the boundary and dropped right into that. And, so happy for Tyrone there. Great way to send our seniors out. Our offensive player of the game, guy that I had a veto vote because he did put the ball on the ground on our second drive of the third quarter. But Travis Johnson, I mean, just what he is able to do for us and coming in and operating. One time we're up against the play clock down on the Sonny Holland end, and we had a shift and a motion on a call, and he, goes right, looks at the play clock, says line up in it, takes the motion off, gets us out of the, ends up getting a 6-yard gain on the play. Just little things that probably a lot of people don't notice. Takes a lot of hits off of Troy, and has done a nice job for us for a number of weeks. And then, just because he blocked a field goal when we were in safe, I gave Mitch Brott the special teams player of the week. So, like I said, good win. Moving forward to clearly a game that is very meaningful to the state of Montana, to both programs, both fan bases, both groups of alumni, and I think it'll be an exciting game. I really think the University of Montana is playing some of their best football right now. I think the Snead kid, he's their leading rusher, and if you ask me just kind of some descriptors, things that pop out to me as I watch him on film, I'd say tough. I think he's physical and he's competitive, and he wants the ball in his hand. He kind of has that point guard mentality. When he takes care of the football, man, they have been a machine on offense the last couple of weeks. And so just think he's playing at a really high level. I think he can make all the throws. The Eastwood kid, I think he's a tough, physical downhill runner, a nice complement in the run game. Not knowing exactly what their situation is at running back. You saw Jerry Louis McGee, who's a dynamic player that they put in the backfield somewhat last week against the University of Idaho in a kind of a blowout win for them. A great momentum builder, I think, for them the last 2 weeks. You see the Akeem kid, obviously a rising star, vertical shot threat, but he's not the only target that they have on the outside. They've got a number of very, very good wide receivers. I think he's just emerging as a guy that can really blow the top off. He's a matchup problem because he is so long, but he can turn it over, long strider, but once he gets down the field, he can separate. They got a bunch of guys. They use 3 tight ends, get after you in a variety of ways. They're very good on special teams. They've got a kicker who's 12 of 15 on the year. I think they're excellent in the kickoff return game. They've got a dynamic punt returner in Louis McGee, and he's kind of a guy that is always a threat because I'm not even sure he knows where he's going sometimes. He just, turns nothing into something by just kind of taking it out the back door. That's always a guy that you got to be concerned about. They're good on kickoff coverage. I just think they're really well-coached team, veteran coaching staff. You can see how this team has matured and grown throughout the course of the season. And, I think we'll have our hands full there. On the defensive side, lots of post-snap movement up front. They're twisting almost every down. And so you've got to do a really good job of keeping your eyes up. They'll create some negative plays if you don't do a good job with your eye discipline on the front. I think they've got 2 excellent linebackers in Olson and Buss, who are playing at an extremely high level. The Olson kid's a tackling machine. He's a physical guy. Once he gets his hands on you, you're probably on the ground. Josh is dynamic. He can, track guys down. He's got excellent speed. They play a lot of guys in the back end. Kind of interesting. They rotate a lot of guys in the secondary, but probably the 3 guys that stand out the most: 17, 10, and 13. The Haug kid, obviously, I think he's second on the team in tackles and does a really good job of getting the ball on the ground. They leave him in the post quite a bit. 10 is a physical guy. they'll rock him down into the into the box, and he can tackle like a linebacker. Looks almost like a linebacker. He's probably as heavy as Josh Buss is right now. Josh looks like, probably started the season around 220. He's probably like a lot of guys, 212, 215 right now, and then 13, a guy they'll match on the slot, and he's gotten a couple of critical interceptions for him in the last 2 games. Plays the out route really well. You got to be smart if you're going to test him. So that's kind of what I see with this outfit, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
You guys rushed for almost 700 yards combined in the last 2 meetings. Do you expect more resistance in that aspect of the game?
Yeah, Greg, I mean, here's the thing. Throw the last 2 games out the window. Okay, it's a different coaching staff. It's a different scheme. It's different players to a large degree. And so, I appreciate the fact that people want to talk about what happened over the last 2 years, but it's absolutely meaningless on Saturday. And this is a well-coached team. And they're going to have their guys ready to go. And they'll have answers for what we're doing in the run game. And clearly, we have more to defend than they have to defend. Because, as I mentioned, Snead is not just an excellent passer, but he's a very good runner. And he's their leading rusher. And, we're not able to probably attack people in the pass game as much as the University of Montana is. And so I'd say the bigger challenge is for us because, he's a true dual threat guy. And so I don't think that Coach Houck is going to be calling up anybody from the previous staff and asking them how to defend the run this year. And so I think that's out the window. Kent Bear, this guy's been around the block. He's an excellent football coach, and he'll have a good plan.
It seems like if you can keep Snead in the pocket, it kind of takes away a lot of what he can do. How do you go about doing that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 because you want to squeeze and be a little bit cautious with that. Well, now you're probably giving him a little bit more time. And so how is he going to be able to affect you in the passing game? And if you get too aggressive, he has a great knack of kind of finding the holes in the seam. You have to leverage the quarterback really, really well, and you got to be calculated. And I think that the element that is probably making them really, really hard to defend right now is just, he's so effective in the +1 run game too. And so if you want to, commit too many guys to coverage, you're light in the box, and they've got that extra body. And so I think that's something that's been really, really working well for him.
Does he compare at all to maybe dealing with Gudbrand, maybe on a lesser degree, but the way Gudbrand can break the pocket, is there any comparison between them?
He's got a good feel just like Gage did, in terms of sliding in and out of things. But I mean, this guy's looking to finish you. I like the way the kid plays. I mean, he's got kind of a tough mentality. Plays like a linebacker. I'm watching the Southern Utah game. I'm like, that guy ate his Wheaties today. I mean, he's hunting up safeties and knocking them out of bounds. And Gage was going to probably look to preserve his body a little bit more. And I think that's probably one of the things that endears this kid to his teammates is that he plays with an aggressive physical style and really doesn't have a lot of regard for his body. He's going to do what he feels like he needs to do to help the team win.
What role did the wins the past 2 years play in the progression of the program?
I think they're clearly those are big wins. They're jumping off points for the offseason. I think they give you a little bit of a boost on the recruiting trail, but everything is a process, man. Everything's a process. Everything's a grind. You can't define a year on one game, even one as important as this. And I think those 2 wins over the last 2 years were definitely important. I think they're important for Bobby too, evidently. Let's be honest. If I'm not 2-0 against those guys, he's probably still in San Diego. And so, I didn't get a thank you card when he became the all-time winningest coach in University of Montana history last week, but I think it's an interesting deal. I have a lot of respect for Coach Houck, and I say those things tongue-in-cheek. He's an excellent football coach, and he's got himself surrounded with really good people, and I think those things were great. He wants to win this game too, and he'll have his guys ready to go.
The fact that your secondary, Idaho State, and then last week played so well, is there some carryover given Montana's strength at wide receiver?
Yeah, I think they are. They are good at wide receiver. I think we're much better in the secondary than we have been over the first couple of years in our program. And I think that bears out by our ability to play a little bit more man-to-man, not have to be quite so conservative and just max drop in extra long situations, because then that allows the quarterback to kind of run around and create some problems for you. And I think those, personnel-wise, we're better. I think Mark and Kyle have worked together extremely well, and they have a comfort level with each other, and that kind of carries over into that position room, and so it's been a good fit. And those guys will be tested on Saturday. We're going to have to play well back there.
When you look at Dante Olson, he's got 41 more tackles than the guy behind him in slants. So how do you think he's around the ball as much as
And,
he
I mean, he's just an active guy. They do, like I said, they move their front a lot. Linebackers stay pretty clean. They'll blitz the formation sometimes, and Kent has them in good spots. And so, I mean, stats, whatever. I mean, come on. The guy's a good tackler. He's a good football player. I don't know that he's got that many more tackles than anybody else, but he's a good football player. And so, I mean, that'd be like teams playing 100-something snaps a game. I mean, that's not happening. So he's a really good football player. He creates a lot of turnovers. Like I said, he's an excellent tackler. When he gets his hands on you, you are on the ground. He's more physical than you think. I think their scheme lightens him up, and also Josh gives those guys opportunities to make plays. And they're two of the best players they have on their team, and so I think it's wise how they approach it. You can see the thought process that goes into the coaching, that they're going to allow two of their best players to kind of have some freedom and kind of keep them clean by moving a lot of guys to the line of scrimmage and not letting those offensive linemen climb to the second level. And those guys, they're taking full advantage of it.
Jake Mayer after the Davis game said it's the most unique defensive scheme he's seen. Does it seem unique, or is there anybody you can compare what they're doing?
I see elements of, kind of the odd stack, Rocky Long stuff. Definitely see elements of that, but it's not a wholesale direction that way. There's what makes it challenging, like I said, is there's a lot of pre-snap movement, and I think it takes teams. The Mayer kid is a great quarterback, and I'm sure it took him a while to kind of figure out where it was coming from, and so you got to kind of calm down and realize that you're going to have some negative plays at times just by the nature of what they do, and not have self-inflicted wounds. You can't get 2 procedure penalties and a tackle for loss in a drive. That's not going to be very helpful, and that's certainly going to be one of our challenges, is handling the atmosphere and the noise. But it's an interesting style. I think I'd say North Dakota is kind of not identical, but similar in that regard. They do a lot of movement and bring pressure from a variety of angles.
Playing around like this, I guess, what are those conversations in recruiting that you had talking about this?
Not really thinking about recruiting right now, I guess, would be my answer to that. I'm thinking about beating Montana. I maybe rephrase your question. I'm not sure I fully understand what you mean by that.
Last year you mentioned you kind of recruit to this game.
Oh, I got you. Okay, yeah. No, the unique nature of this rivalry and how important and special it is, I think that's one of the things that you can sell at both Montana and Montana State, because it is such an unbelievable environment and such a meaningful game, and there's so much passion centered around it. There's certainly, nothing else in the Big Sky Conference really compares to this. And so if you're recruiting against other Big Sky schools, you're saying, hey, man, it's third Saturday in November, you're going to get a chance to do this every year, and this is something that's totally different, unique, and special. And so I think it's got a national brand. People pay attention to this game, even people that don't have affiliation with either university. And so I think that does, it's a talking point for us in recruiting for sure.
I'm curious if anybody is involved with the university has come up to you and been giving you a history lesson on the rivalry. I remember back in the 1980s.
Yeah, I got plenty of history lessons when I first got here. I actually there's 2 books that are written on the rivalry, and I think I was sent 5 copies of each book within the first month I was here, and they wanted to make sure I understood how important it was. But I have I'm kind of a history guy anyway, so I pay attention to those things. And even though I didn't attend either university, I went to college in the state of Montana, and I'm a Northwest native, and so I understand the importance of this and have a pretty good grasp of it. And I think we do a good job of educating our young men.
You guys gave some of your internal awards away the other night. Tucker Yates, what do you think made him the defensive lineman of the year?
Consistent production over a long period of time. The guy's a grinder and is always very, very competitive, tough, detailed, prepared, well respected. I think he's been an awesome player for us, and kind of an anchor in the middle of our defensive line.
That's a tough award to win based on the guys that you have at that position, right?
Yeah, there's some pretty good players up there this year. So, I think Tyrone was voted by his teammates as the defensive player of the year, and I think that speaks to, again, production over time and the emotion and energy he brings, and Zach Wright and what he does for our team, and Bryce Sturck, the new addition, who's kind of been a splash player for us, and so pretty high standard has been set within that group, and and now our job is to continue to kind of build on that. And I think that was something that was here, kind of in the mid-2000s when things were really rolling. They were known for great defensive line play, and hopefully that can be a building block for us as we're continuing to take the next step in this program.
Your defensive line versus Montana's offensive line, what do you think of that matchup?
I think it's interesting because I know they've struggled a little bit. I mean, I see they've got originally I think he was recruited as a linebacker playing right guard for him, and they played some D-line. But Chad Drimmer's a really good football coach, man. He'll get those guys ready to go. I think that they've done a nice job of mixing their personnel groups so that you really can't just tee off on those guys. They're using tempo. Obviously, they've got an elusive quarterback, and that's kind of an eraser. So if there is a mistake made, Dalton Snead can kind of correct that. Does a nice job of knowing where he's going with the ball, getting it out of his hands. They move the pocket some. I think good coaches figure out a way to make it work, and I think those kids have actually, they've probably gone well above what even their coaches thought at the beginning of the year what they were going to be capable of. You look at how they're operating on offense right now. You don't do that if you're not playing well up front.
Do you see any elements of the stuff they were doing on offense the last couple of years, what they're doing now, or is it mostly different?
Yeah, I mean, there's some spread elements within their offense for sure. I mean, there's some RPOs, there's some quick game, there's some nows, there's some keys, and inside zone is inside zone, and but they are. You can see kind of the identity that they want to build. They'll get into 13 personnel and they'll get into 21 and they'll try to run some power and do those types of things. And so you can see, I think it's a good coaching job because you inherit a system that's maybe not stylistically exactly what you want. That also comes with a lot of players that maybe aren't exactly what needs to be and what you need to have to fit that system. And I think they've kind of walked that line and remained very, very competitive and have consistently improved throughout the course of the year. And so I think, when they hold on to the ball, they're pretty dynamic on offense. I think Rosie's done a good job. You mentioned Chad, Brent Pease at wide receiver coach, and they've got a veteran group of guys on that side of the ball. There's a lot of football knowledge there.
With the exception of Cal Poly, they haven't really played a team that has a running quarterback like Troy. Is it hard to prepare for?
Yeah, we were kind of trying to figure that out a little bit. It's like, okay, who's the most like us? And they really haven't played any. I mean, you talk about the Cal Poly game, but that's a completely different animal. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that they'll have a good scheme for us. It's a little bit difficult for us to know how much that's going to change. But I would say this, I think like anything else, we all kind of are who we are after 10 games. What you see on film is kind of what you're going to get. I mean, they're not going to invent a new defense to stop what we do. We can't invent a new defense to stop what they do. We've got to go execute at a high level. It's going to come down to probably things like, turnovers, special teams, momentum swings, explosive plays, how guys handle the elements, how guys handle the environment, who's the most excited to play, and, who's it going to mean more to.
The last game in Missoula was the first time you guys as a staff had been there. Any little takeaways in terms of pregame or anything like that you use?
No. I mean, not really. It's kind of a unique setup. I mean, kind of walk down that tunnel, and I'm sure they'll be juiced, and it'll be good. We'll have to make sure we keep our composure and stay focused and, remember why we're there.
Do you see this as a playing game for the playoffs?
Don't care about the playoffs. Have no interest in talking about it. Quite honestly, you can ask a question 100 times, I'm not going to answer it once. This is all about the University of Montana.
You like how they've used Gabe Seltzer?
Yeah, well, when he comes in the game, they definitely try to get him the ball. I mean, Gabe's a dynamic kid, and kid that we would love to have here. And they did a nice job recruiting him, and he has a lot of history and tradition with that program. He's a quality young man, comes from a great family. You can see that they're starting to get him involved a little bit more each week in the offense, and so I think he's done a nice job for a true freshman for him.